Hi guys, welcome back to Mysteries channel. Thank you so much for clicking on the channel, checking out the videos. I really do appreciate it. I apologize for the long break in between this video and the last one, but a girl's got to make money, you know what I mean? So there's that. Anyway, today we're going to continue the war series and delve into the ancient gods connected to war and see if they bind us like so many myths and legends do around the world. I'd also like to add a small disclaimer here. Everything we're going to talk about today is my own thoughts and opinions on a subject matter that many believe evolves separately in different places around the world. Basically, I like to compare mythologies and ancient religions. I like to see where they sync up. I feel like they're Easter eggs that give us a better clue of what the reality of the ancient world really looked like, not the erroneous history that we're taught today. And though I like to compare these mythologies, these comparisons may not be correct. I'm just going off my own intuition. Also, if you feel like I'm missing information connected with this video, call me out in the comments. I'll never get mad about that. So it amazes me with the amount of information that I learn from you guys. I just love it. And lastly, the last word I gotta say before I get to the sauce of the video. Everything that we're about to go over today is an evolution of past knowledge. To put it in perspective, the ancients were studying these same concepts because to them, these were also ancient legends. All of these are beyond ancient oral traditions that changed a little bit over time here and there and everywhere. These are encoded stories that have layer of knowledge interwoven within them. They were shared from lip to ear for thousands and thousands of years before they were ever written down, and then they were shared in stone for thousands of more years. This was to who we consider the ancients gnosis, or knowledge of spiritual mysteries. Much of what we're going over today is a kind of bastardization. I hate to say it, but it's true because we really don't know the half of it. So much has been destroyed over time, and almost all of that destruction came from our very own damn hands. The original meaning is lost to most, but I am positive there are those out there that retain the original meaning. As for me, I'm just giving you my opinion. I'm relatively new to this stuff, but I love looking into it, so let's get to it. In the Jebel Sahaba video, I speak of the gods named Zeus and Dionysus by the Hellenes. In truth, this father and son duo have roots in almost all Indo-European mythologies, many African mythologies. I believe they show up in the Americas and probably everywhere else too, if you know what I mean. Zeus and Dionysus are ancient gods connected to war, but they aren't the only ones. There are many, many, many more, but these are the ones we will focus on today. There's a lot to unpack here, so I'm gonna try to get it into one video, but I really can't promise anything on this. There's so much. Now, depending on where you are from, you will know them by different names. He was Zeus to the Hellenes, Amon to the Nubians and the Egyptians, Teshbudo to the Iranians, Hadad to the Babylonians, Ishkar to the Sumerians, he's Dagda to the Celts, Jupiter to the Romans, Thor to the Germanic tribes, Perun to the Slavic tribes. I also think he might be Huitzilopochtli in Mexico and Lei Shen in China. So today, we're gonna start with Zeus because I'm most familiar with him. Zeus is a sky and thunder god in the ancient Greek religion who rules as king of the gods on Mount Olympus. Zeus may well be one of the most recognizable names we have associated with the ancient gods of old. Diodorus Siculus wrote that Zeus was also called Zen because humans believed that he was the cause of life, while Lactantius wrote that he was called Zeus and Zen not because he was the giver of life, but because he was the first child of Kronos to have lived or survived his father's actions. Kronos was the leader and the youngest of the first generation of Titans, the divine descendants of Uranus, Father Sky, and Gaia, Mother Earth. Uranus overthrew his father and ruled during the mythological Golden Age until he was overthrown by his own son, Zeus, and imprisoned in Tartarus. Zeus was respected as an all-father who was chief of the gods, and he assigned rules to the others. Even the gods, who were not his natural children, addressed him as father, and all the gods rise in his presence. Throughout history, Zeus has been depicted as using violence to get his way. As god of the sky, he has the power to hurl lightning bolts as a weapon. He was the son of Kronos and Rhea, who were both Titans, and according to a Cretan myth, it was later adopted by the Greeks. Kronos, king of the Titans, upon learning that one of his children was fated to dethrone him, swallowed all of his children as soon as they were born. But Rhea, his wife, saved the infant Zeus by substituting a stone wrapped in a swaddling cloth for Kronos to swallow and hiding Zeus in a cave on Crete. When he grew up, With the help of his brothers and sisters, Zeus began a war against the Titans and overthrew his father. It is said that Zeus was appalled by human sacrifice, despised it even. And when Zeus was atop Mount Olympus and he saw human sacrifice and other signs of human decadence, he was disgusted. He decided to wipe out mankind and flooded the world with the help of his brother Poseidon. Even with this part of mythology, some of the earliest festivals do lend to human sacrifice. In ancient Greece, the Lykaia was an archaic festival on top of Mount Lycaon, translated as Wolf Mountain. That's right, remember the Wolves of War? Check that video out. It's very, very much connected. I think Zeuxis may actually be another interpretation of Zeus. According to Plato, a particular clan would gather at the mountain to make sacrifice every 9 years to Zeus on Lycaos. A single morsel of human entrails would be intermingled with an animal's. Whoever ate the human flesh was said to turn into a wolf. So I totally thought this 9-year ritual was super interesting and random, at least to me. I did a little bit more research on it and we will come back to it later. Just remember, 9 years. According to Plutarch, Zeus appears to be associated with purification, especially that of blood guilt. Also, a few oracular sites were dedicated to Zeus, one being the oracle at Dodona, where there is evidence of religious activity from the second millennia BC onward, centered around a sacred oak. And also, when the Odyssey was composed around 750 BCE, divination was done there by barefoot priests called Siloi, who would lay on the ground and they would stare up the oak leaves as they twist and do things in the wind and make predictions and then interpret the events of the world that way. Tell me if that is not the most hippie thing you have ever friggin' heard in your life. I swear to God. By the time Herodotus writes about the oracle at Dodona, the male priests are now gone and now it's female priests and they are called Pleiades. Zeus's consort at Dodona was not Hera, his wife, but the goddess Dion, whose name is the feminine form of Zeus. And you're like, Zeus, Dion, that doesn't sound very similar, but Zeus is a Greek continuation of Deus. Zeus, Deus. And Deus is the name of the Proto-European god of the daytime sky, also called Deus Pater, Sky Father. Zeus basically meant day god and is often connected with or conflated with Helios, the sun god. Many times Helios is even referred to as the eye of Zeus. Dion's status as a Titaness suggests that she may have been a more powerful pre-Hellenic deity connected to this site. Maybe the original occupant, maybe not, we aren't sure. It's interesting though, right? An even more ancient religion. The Temple of Zeus was built on an already ancient religious site at Olympia. I wonder what this ancient religion was. What religion did Zeus replace? Because that's what it seems like here, right? So I had to know, did he fight someone to get the power of All-Father? After the war with the gods and the giants, Earth, out of anger at the gods for the destruction of her own offspring, the giants, bore Typhon. Now, some say that offspring of Earth just means that it is earthborn. Maybe even another way to say local. I know it sounds crazy, right? But something that didn't come from somewhere else, something that is happening on Earth or is on Earth because it's always been a part of Earth. Hesiod, he actually leaves some clues on this. Strength was in his hands in all that he did, and the feet of the strong god were untiring. From his shoulders grew 100 heads of snake, a fearful dragon with dark, flickering tongues, and from under his brows of his eyes, in his marvelous heads flashed fire, and the fire burned from his heads as he glared. And there were voices in all of the dreadful heads, which uttered every kind of sound unspeakable. For at one time they made sounds such as the gods understood, but at another the noise of the bull bellowing a loud and proud ungovernable fury, and at another the sound of a lion, relentless of heart, and another sounds like whelps, wonderful to the ear, and again at another he would hiss so high the mountains echoed. Now I think that Zeus is the bull. Zeus is the bull that takes out Typhon the snake. Freaking interesting, isn't it? The temple housed the renowned statue of Zeus, which was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And if you want to know what the Temple of Zeus looked like or kind of have a feeling of what the Temple of Zeus looked like, you just march your ass right up to Washington, D.C. and you go and you check out the Lincoln Memorial. Absolutely, absolutely modeled after the Temple of Zeus, just not as grand. And it didn't start with the Lincoln Memorial, people. It started in 1841. A statue of George Washington was commissioned. And as soon as that statue was finished, controversy immediately ensued. Turns out puritanical Americans were not ready to see Washington's nipples to be exposed. Literally, America's first nipplegate. Also, they were kind of pissed at this was an obvious pagan representation and that it was Zeus. America, where religion and state are separated. Sometimes. Anyway, back to Zeus. The statue of Zeus was commissioned by the Hellenes, custodians of the Olympic Games. You see, the games were held in honor of Zeus, and the Greeks gave them a mythological origin. The first Olympic Games are traditionally dated to 776 BCE, and the ancient Olympics were as much a religious festival as an athletic event. And in ancient times, the games were used as a political way to show off their warriors. This was all about glorifying war, running, long jump, shot put, javelin, boxing, wrestling, equestrian events. These are all segments of what happens in battle. The games were held in honor of the Greek god Zeus, and in the middle of the day, 100 oxen would be sacrificed. The games were held every 4 years, or an Olympiad, which became a unit of time in historical chronologies. The prize for the victors was the olive wreath, or crown. And even though the games were really a pagan ritual at heart, they had deep-rooted political antics tied to them. The spread of Greek colonies in the 5th and 6th centuries BCE is repeatedly linked to successful Olympic athletes. That's right, guys. These athletes were akin to warriors, and not just warriors. They were military leaders. They continued to be celebrated in Greece until Roman rule around the 2nd century BCE. And their last recorded celebration was in 393 AD under the Emperor Theodosius I. In fact, it is he that banned participation in pagan cults, shut down the Olympics along with the temples, earthquakes, fire, looters, finishes it off from there. Like I said, Zeus is kind of a universal name, but he's not even Greek. Like most of all the Greek gods, Zeus comes originally from elsewhere. But where? We know that the Nubians talked about him, but I had to know, do the Babylonians, do the Sumerians, does he have counterparts in other parts of the world? Sure enough, he does. Let's dive deep. Did you guys know that there were gods before the Sumerian god Anu? I'll tell you what, it was news to me, and here's the scoop. Alalu was one of the former gods inhabiting the underworld. The name Alalu is most likely borrowed from Mesopotamian mythology. A figure called Alala is attested as one of Anu's many ancestors in the gods list. Alalu was one of the primeval gods of the underworld, and it is said that after 9 years of reign, Alalu was defeated by his cupbearer, the cupbearer being Anu, and then he fled to the dark earth, the underworld. Here's that 9 years again. Later, Alalu's son, Kumbari, served as Anu's cupbearer before attacking him to seize power and kingship for himself. During the fight, Kumbari bites off and swallows Anu's testicles, hence becoming pregnant with Teshub. Many scholars have pointed out the similarities between this Huranian myth, the Greek mythology of Uranus, Kronos, and Zeus. Another crazy connection here is that Alala was an ancient war cry used by the Greeks. Alala eventually becomes a minor goddess in the Greek pantheon as the personification of a battle cry. And as the soldiers rushed into battle, they would scream in order to panic the enemy. It's interesting. It's a weird connection, but it's there. So I thought, who in the heck is Teshub? Teshub is depicted as holding a triple thunderbolt and a weapon, usually an axe, often double-headed, like a mace, or dare I say, a hammer. The sacred bull, common throughout Anatolia, was his signature animal, represented by his horned crown and by his steeds. According to Hittite myths, Teshub's greatest act was the slaying of the dragon Ilyanka. Now this dragon is depicted here, and I think it looks more like a snake than an actual dragon. In some myths, he is described as a sea creature. His son's name is Saruma. Now, the Sumerian version of Teshub is Ishkur, and the Canaanite version is Adad, who is also called Baal. Baal translates as Lord, and in the earliest traditions, Ishkur was actually a more peaceful and pastoral god, but as time went on, his character fell in line with Adad. Shamash and Adad become a combination of gods, of oracles, and of divination in general. Whether the will of the gods is determined through the inspection of a liver of a sacrificial animal, through observing the action of oil in a basin of water, or through the observation of movements of the heavenly bodies. It is Shamash and Adad, and they are the ones who are invoked. Votive inscriptions of the kings, when oracles are referred to, are almost always Shamash and Adad, and they are typically both designated Bele Biri, lords of divination. On to Amon. The god Amon, who is usually shown with the horns of a ram, was initially venerated by the Libyan desert tribes only. Nubian. The cult was taken over by the Egyptians, who identified the god with their supreme god Amun, who they also call Amun, but kind of claim like they were the first. But it doesn't seem like that. Like, evidence all points to Nubia having this god first. And he is also the god of the oracle, Amon of Siwa, lord of good counsel. What kind of counsel, you ask? Military counsel, that's the kind. We talked of this briefly before. In ancient times, generals would make a sort of pilgrimage to Siwa to seek counsel with the oracle on where and when to further their empires. And it wasn't just Alexander the Great. He's the one I brought up in a past video. This was the thing to do if you were in control of an army. And I even think that this might be why the deserters leave Egypt, that story we brought up last time. Maybe they weren't allowed to at a certain point in time pay homage to this god, and they were like, deuces, I'm gonna go where I can. And this was a trek. Depending on where you started, this could literally take years to get to this place to ask questions. Another famous military leader to visit the oracle was Hannibal. While seeking counsel, the oracle informs Hannibal that he would be buried in the town of Lykaia. Hannibal thinks, thanks for the info, man. To survive, I'm just going to avoid this African town, continue my campaign of terror, and that's what he does. Turns out there's more than one Lykaia. There's another one in Turkey, and turns out that's exactly where Hannibal is buried. Should have listened to the oracle. Now, Zeus and Amon were recognized as one by many Greeks and many non-Greeks alike. In fact, many of the most warlike societies worship both of them together. The Spartans, for example, were huge fans. The Spartan religious system was a very militaristic and a very superstitious religion, and also, much like Zeus and Tishub, Amon is a god of royalty. And who is Ra? Ra is again a solar deity. Now, I had to know, is there a snake involved with this one? And would you believe it, there is? Amon-Ra's greatest enemy is Apep. Apep was seen as a giant snake or serpent, leading to such titles as Serpent of the Nile or Evil Dragon. Apep was ancient. Depictions of Apep as an enemy deity were found on pre-dynastic pottery dating back 6,000 years. This bull, I feel like, is the biggest clue of them all. Yep, that's right, people. These are constellations. Precession of the equinox. After the snake comes the bull. Now, this is confusing as heck to me because it doesn't line up with what we're used to. But no worries. I'll just keep researching it. I'm going to figure this out.